Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's going on,
Hey,
everyone? What's going
how's
on?
everyone doing? Did everyone survive? Are we all here?
Right.
Yes.
We are all here in one piece. One piece we are in. So, what a great week, man. It just seems like these weeks leading to summer. And to be honest, outside of I don't know the last couple years, I don't think we've had this really action-packed of a spring. You have a lot of Star Wars content back to back we've been running. Obviously, X-Men has dropped, and there's mixed reviews on that. But there's just been a lot of stuff that
Reviews.
lot.
Love X-Men. Love it. Love it.
You know how
Reviews.
it is.
Every second of it.
Reviews of
There's
X-Men.
always
Where would we find a review of X-Men, do you think, T. Mitch?
Yeah.
That we
I
might
think
wanna-
yeah,
I think there should be
yeah.
one here.
right, definitely. But you know
It's
how
on
it
me,
is.
guys.
There's
I've
always
been busy.
no, that's all right. There's always a percent of the fan base that get paid to be negative, but no.
Paid.
You know these people.
You're the conspiracy
Hey, if you're
theorist
gonna pay me to be
fanboy.
negative, had all this
No, you
happen.
know that. You know these
Yeah.
IMDb. It's like these IMDb reviews that people trash movies.
Just tell them to go back to sleep.
Right.
Uh,
I'm hooked. I watched this. I watched between Bad Batch and the X-Men. I think I've watched them both like 2 or 3 times each. But
Hey, you can't help it.
no.
But
But before we even dive into today's episode, which was dubbed by a certain person the best episode so far, let's let our guy DP let you guys know where to find us at.
nerdcyclopedia.com, people, your favorite website where you get all your favorite Star Wars fanfic. We'll be coming back to that pretty soon, guys. Find your social media at Nerdcyclopedia on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also on TikTok. If you're listening to us on podcast, we're on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Odyssey, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Guess what? We're there. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Also hit that notification. Also share our podcast. You got a lot of friends out there. You got a lot of Star Wars fans. Make sure that you're sharing our podcast, please. If you're watching us on Facebook as well, there's a button to share as well. Carbon and Bonnie BS, the Star Wars group. Make sure that you're watching us and you get all your favorite memes. Join our group. Search us out. We love talking with everyone that loves Star Wars. If you want to leave us some feedback, make sure that you email us, nerds@nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback and getting all your suggestions to make us be better.
and even if you don't have a lot of friends, think of it this way: you have us. So use us as a sounding board for all your disagreements and anything that you have going on in your life until you get some real friends. But use us as your friends.
All right. I can dig it.
Yeah. And what a great intro.
And
but guys.
don't bore your significant other with your Star Wars opinions. They don't.
Please.
They don't.
No, they don't.
Bring them to
wanna
us.
hear it.
Bring them to us. We want to pretend to take them seriously.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
We want to pretend.
we want to really pretend to take you seriously.
Yeah. No, but leading into this episode, it's been a great week. I mean, I don't know if you guys read before we lead into Bad Batch, but so the Empire magazine, Daisy Ridley's article, she leaked out that she has received
Turn on the
a script for episode 10. So, what are you just real quick? What are you guys' initial thoughts? I mean, I guess we're steaming ahead of that. They're reshuffling these next 3 movies, but Daisy Ridley has received the first draft of a script. It looks like episode 10, and she's I don't know how that works as far as the industry, if she says yay, nay, if she has any input, but it's just nice to see that already she has a script in hand and she's going to do her first review of it. So, what are you guys' thoughts of where we're heading in the I guess sequel trilogy with postquels, we'll call them? I don't know what this will be.
So I'd have to know who wrote it and who's going to direct it. I don't care about content, but I want to know who wrote it and who did the screenplay, because that's usually different than anybody that's involved in the film, and who's going to direct it. That's all that matters to me. Because if you got the right names in those 2 boxes, I'm okay with the story.
So they're still continuing with the numbers, huh?
Yeah, it's listed as episode X. So
Episodes. Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Episode X.
I mean, IMDb does have a spot for it, so it's 2026. Directors Shareem Obiad Chinoy. Writers are Justin Britt Gibson, Stephen Knight, and Damian Lindelof.
Damian Lindelof. I don't think he's going to be doing
that. Damon. I'm sorry,
Damon Lindelof. Yeah, if I heard he was on it, and then I heard he's off the project and everything, but I don't think he's going to be really doing that. I think that's just a placeholder for whatever they come up with. Stephen McKnight, he did some Daredevil stuff,
maybe,
Marvel. Pretty good. I never heard of the director, so.
Yeah, I think they need to bring in a heavy hitter. They need to bring in a name. They need to bring in someone.
Abrams.
Abrams.
No more.
James Cameron. John Carpenter. Bring in somebody big for this. I'm deadly serious. Yeah, bring in a big. And I almost went to see him last weekend, but I couldn't arrange it. I couldn't get anyone to.
Did he have like a meetup or something?
Yeah, at the Steel City.
Oh, yeah, Steel City.
And it was, they had the photo op set up. It was a Breakfast Club reunion, so there was a photo op for that. There was a photo op for John Carpenter and some but Anthony Michael Hall was there, and they didn't have a photo op with him and John Carpenter, which would have been perfect. And I would have had to go, but I couldn't make it. Love that guy. Anyway, so this episode, Into the Breach, that got me, that hooked me right away, because Breach to me is like, I'm talking like stormtroopers busting through the door of the Tata 4. This is a big takeoff for our team here. I liked that we're past all the vault mystique. Now we can just go in and see the kids. Now we can just see what's going on. We got Omega in there now, and I knew that she was gonna like bring the guys together. He was gonna like get these kids enforced and empowered to get out of there. So it had all those great Star Wars elements that I love, like breaking out of the detention center in the Death Star. It had this whole working together as a team and leadership and inspiration. Omega is definitely growing on me. Like I dig this character.
She's beginning to be a badass.
Yep, and I'd like to see a series just on her, maybe after Bad Batch ends. Like, what does she do? What does she do? What's her next? What's her next adventure? Come on. It had everything that everything that Star Wars is about. It had like espionage. It had like close calls. It had, last minute. How last minute can you get? Attaching yourself to an Imperial freighter a half a second before it jumps. That was great. It's just a great ending, great beginning, great middle. I was engaged through the whole thing. Watched it a couple times. Maybe not the best episode of this run.
There we go.
Definitely had. If I was gonna, and I said it kind of off air. I said, like, if they started with this episode, like this was episode 1 of season 3. I think this would have been a nice place. Hey, it's Star Wars. We backtrack left and right.
He'll downgrade his answer, in another.
Bro, Ken, I love this. This is what I love about you. You become real when you're live. Like, like that. When you sent that message, I thought you were trolling, because I'm gonna be honest, right? It was a good episode. If this was episode 6, we're now on 13, and we just talked about this, and this is like something that I would expect the maturation of Filoni or whoever's helping him run the show. Like, It's just a common theme in all his shows. He leaves it too late. There are way too many storylines. This wasn't filler, so this was a good episode. I'm not going to bash it being bad or anything. It moved the story further forward, but not forward enough. We didn't get enough information. It's just too late. There's too much to know. They're going to jam these last two episodes a ton of stuff in, try to, make some kind of, I guess, ending that kill off the Bad Batch or have them go off because this is done, right?
What would they try to jam in? Because all we're really got in this season is this
we need
Imperial
to know,
base and
we need to
Omega.
Know about Nala we haven't seen Nala at all, so she's just going to die, and that's it. So we're never going to know about the clones.
No, never going to see it again. Collateral damage.
I need to know more about, because they keep bringing up Kamino. They keep bringing up her importance. There's not enough time to understand. So we're not going to know about Dr. Carr, how she, there's just, they have too many characters introduced to just let this all go.
Did Kamino get bombed? It's gone, right? Kamino got so what do we care? We don't care about Kamino anymore.
Well, that city did. Did they really wipe the face of the planet clean? I don't think they did.
Gone. Imperial bombardment.
So you don't want to know anything about this, about how these clones, because think about it. You're focused on we don't know how the Bad Batch came to be, right? We want to know about the whole cloning thing. This show is about trying to get answers. That's what she's talking about. The blood. We're starting to get closer.
Is it about getting answers, or is it just about the Bad Batch?
For a while, it was about getting answers.
I thought it was.
I kind of agree with you, T. Mitch. If all this really is just coming down to them rescuing Omega, I have to say it will be sort of a miss.
Isn't that what they do? Isn't that what these boys do?
That's what they're going to do.
3 seasons for it just to come down to them for Omega to get kidnapped again, and then for them to rescue her.
She did it on purpose.
This time she did it on purpose, but it's the same mechanics. It's the same plot.
Yeah. It seems like maybe they have one too many trips to and from Mount Tantus here.
Yeah.
Probably there should not be, not have been so much back and forth with Mount Tantus. And that seems to be a real issue with this season, is that they didn't really know. It felt like they didn't know where they were trying to go, or it felt like there was unfinished business from season 2 they had to mop up in season 3. So they had to do this plot where there was an escape rather than something a little bit more linear. Because if Omega had been trying to escape from this place this whole time, it would be, there would be character development, it'd be cathartic, it would give her a whole purpose. But going back and forth, is it dangerous? Is it not dangerous? It sure seems like it's dangerous for them to be there. It seems like they've had a lot of Jimmies, if you know what I mean, where they're like, oh, now I need a new Jimmy, better go and get another Jimmy.
It's sort of dangerous for us as a viewer, because they're introducing questions, like T. Mitch saying, that we want to know answers to. So, as you go back and forth, it's like, okay, well, what's that and what's that? But it just seems like the end game is just them rescuing, Omega, and I don't know if that's totally satisfactory.
All the Bad Batch care about are freeing those clones. That's it.
Well, they're just trying to free Omega. They don't care about the kids yet. They don't really know about them. So not
them. The clones.
The
prisoners. Yes. That's all they care about. That's it.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother storyline is what I'm talking about. They're all about trying to create a society where clones have free will. That's cool if we would have did that, but we're not going there, because now we're worried about because they have no idea what M count is. Omega, there's just too many ideas. Omega is trying to figure out, why do you need my blood? What are you cloning for? So what do you need us for? Now she's being introduced to other children that are force sensitive. Why are you guys, you know what I mean? There's just too many ideas.
Well, children that definitely are force sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know we don't really know about Omega, whether she actually has the ability to utilize the force.
She hasn't done anything that was particularly force-ish.
Right. We don't know if it's
unknown, right?
Well, we don't know if it's because she has a high M count, or if it's just because the change in her M count was positive or equal, right?
Well, we don't know. It's almost like she's like a universal donor, is what it seems like. She can maintain the level which they need, because the other
the replication doesn't break down. If they introduce her blood to the other clones or subject's blood, the M count doesn't break down. So they're using her as like you said. It's
Yeah.
but
it seems like the reason Palpatine can't just clone himself is because of this, right? And the reason the Sith have the rule of two and do all the errors crap that they do is basically because they've been unable to forever to create a clone that has an equal to or greater than midichlorian count. And that seems to be like what they're getting at. So if Omega has a low total M count, but her M count is, let's say, 2 points higher than the Jango Fett's, right? Instead of equal or less than, then that would be a huge deal. And it would mean that you could clone a body for the Emperor that had the same access to the Force that he does, or, God forbid, Anakin Skywalker does. Because why not use, you got a bunch of tissue samples for that guy lying around. You can't go 3 feet without countering a limb that's been hacked off of that dude.
Yeah.
They're around.
Yeah. So Ken, with you saying you're happy about this, I mean, like, and we talk about this, and it's not like I said, this hasn't been bad at all. My issue is just I've noticed with Filoni's stories that it seems like when we get to the end, there's more questions. It's like the beginning is super good, the middle slows down pace a little bit, and then we get to the end, and there's more questions and answers.
But you could say that. Let's say it was like the perfectly scripted story. You could still find, I still want to know about this, that.
But a perfectly scripted story we'd be at Tantus right now, and we'd be understanding like what's in the vault. So we're gonna see what's in the vault in the last 2 episodes. We're gonna figure out who this guy is in his black costume in 2 episodes, and really explain what happened. So if this is tech,
well, you're already thinking it's tech. Yeah, I mean that. Okay, but I don't know.
So we're gonna have enough time to explain if it is tech, what happened. I don't think so. We still have Nala Sayid stuck in a prison, so we all know she's going to do some self-destruct and blow up the whole mount, right? Like, there's just so much stuff going on, and I think 2 episodes of 24 minutes, maybe, it's just not enough.
It's a shame they felt the need to have last week's episode exist, rather than to use that screen time later to resolve some of these questions. And we talk about Chekhov's lightsaber jokingly, but Chekhov's gun is this rule from a Russian playwright. Guess what his name is? His name is Chekhov. And he said, if you show the audience a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the third act, or else what was the point? So these are, we also call these things uncashed checks, right? Where you're writing a check, it's like, I'm going to tell you all about what happened to the clones and where the clones are. Are you ready? Are you ready? This is earlier in the series, right? Episode 4, 5, 6, something like that. Yep. Are you ready? Are you ready? And they're not going to do that, right? So it's a little bit of a broken promise, but I don't know. I feel like there's definitely going to be more material that's covering this era and covering these characters. Like, there's no way that Omega's done. It's just not possible.
Why are the clones? Well, I'm just going to ask a question. So I'm an innocent bystander. Why is knowing about the clones so important? Because here's where I'm coming from. Clone knowledge basically has nothing to do with Star Wars from episode 4 on. Like, the Clone Wars were in the past. Like, they were over. It was done. The clones were gone. Nobody. It was a mistake. It was just it was an imperial oops. Okay. Right. So as far as history goes with Star Wars, clones were very small and a mistake. Almost it was almost like slavery of a sort. A very severe and imperial form of slavery, let's say. And they made these creatures, these clones, to fight and defend, depending on what side they were on. And with the fall of the Old Republic, all the clones were decommissioned, destroyed, wiped out, lost. Nobody cares. So why is it so important that we need to know about this history of these failed attempt of a soldier?
So to give you the perfect rebuttal to that, for us to detextualize clones would be the same to detextualize a bunch of people in helmets wearing Beskar that we're watching right now, because it's the same storyline. Because they're cool and they're fighters and they come from a warrior breed, it's full to understand.
Mandalorians were Senate. They were they thought they had personalities. They made decisions. They had families. They weren't.
So,
yeah, but it's the same.
So why then? Why did we switch? Why the change? That's what I mean by that, Ken. Is like it's not so much like who cares about the individual clones? Their regs are the same dude 250 million times or however many times. But in reality, it matters because they use stormtroopers now and they're not clones. And we know that definitively, right? So we know for a fact that at some point the Empire switched over from having a predominantly, clone army to having a predominantly, it sure seems like citizen army of some sort. And that's interesting because there should be some sort of reason why Palpatine would do that, right? Why not just produce these clones? And I think one thing the Bad Batch has really done is it's made the clones out to be pretty badass in comparison to the stormtroopers, which again, which answers a question I always had, which is like why, like who would have been so badass? If the stormtroopers are terrible at shooting and everything, were the clones like just much better? And the answer is just yes.
Well,
yes, they're much
remember
better.
Also the clones were fighting droids. That was their adversary. Basically, they weren't built to fight humans. That wasn't their job. They were built to fight.
They're just
robots.
Little Unabombers out there.
Whatever. They were built to. They knew they were trained to fight these battle droids, to fight super battle droids, to fight droidicas. That was their enemy. Humans are a different thing, and I think the Emperor, the Empire, whoever's in charge at the time, realized that this is a terrible fighting force. These clones are starting to think on their own. They're starting to make decisions because that ultimately is part of.
Didn't they address a little bit of that in the series, like the reasoning? Didn't we broach like? I mean, I know it wasn't direct from Palpatine himself, but I think they did broach it in like some of their the commanders and generals and stuff on why they went from clones to stormtroopers and stuff. I think we got that maybe like in the first season.
That's what Rampart's plot. That was a Rampart's plot. It was the first thing he did before he destroyed Kamino. So it was like, okay, we don't need more clones. Now let's destroy the clone source.
And that was Tarkin's big part of this whole thing is he didn't want to want clones anymore. He wanted superior fighting troops.
But are they?
Who couldn't shoot, but some of them could shoot. I mean, I would say 90% of the stormtroopers, I would use them to defend me in battle.
Don't try to just stormtroopers, man.
No, bro. So you're telling me a human is a better killer
to us already. But I just wonder what the importance of knowing about these clones.
Well, Ken, to your point. Sorry to interrupt, teammates. To your point,
you're good.
I do see Ken's point about us, the historical knowledge of, since we don't see broach any of this in like the sequel stuff, all the history of the clone stuff. I mean, it happened so far back that people aren't really talking about it. It's like, irrelevancy. Like Ken said, from 4 to 6, all the 7 to 8, 9, and everything. We're not talking about anything about clones and stuff. We as watchers of this series, because they're broaching questions, of course we want some of the stuff answered. Now, does it definitively have to be answered in this series? I don't know. I would have liked it to be, because I think they were asking some really important questions. But I don't think it just seems to me that they're not set on satisfying the audience because the history or the Star Wars is so big, it could be answered in other media, I guess. Where they don't necessarily
it's already out there. The answers are already there in a publication or a comic series or something. Like it's already been. We already know what the Emperor is doing
at this point, but
I think this is anti-clone. You're being very anti-clone because you're saying the same argument for the Mandalorians.
I am anti-clone because it doesn't.
It's the same argument because we saw our first Mandalorian in the prequel, right? So we saw our first clone in the prequels. So why not just diminish what the Mandalorians are doing right now? We know there was a genocide. We had a definitive answer what happened to Mandalore.
That's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, T. Mitch. Okay, cool. So, but was Django Django was a clone, was he a Mandalorian, or did he just take that? Did he just steal that? Like,
Well, jury's out.
Based on what Kree, because if we watch the show had said that they were Mandalorians. If we watched the comics and the legend stuff, they weren't Mandalorians. They just wore the armor. So now it becomes: do we listen to Filoni or do we listen to what the EU said at some point? Because before they just wore the armor.
Combine the two, because Filoni didn't necessarily say that Mandalorians were clones.
Mandalorians were based on what? Din Djarin, you were kind of allowed into the creed, right? You weren't born necessarily Mandalorian, but
it's weird, right? It seems like they vacillated a lot on what being a Mandalorian means. Is it a cultural thing? Is it like a genetic heritage that you have to be from Mandalorian? You have to have like familial,
or do you just need
lines
to recite the scripture and swallow it and believe it?
Feel the love of Mandalore in your heart,
right? So no, we talk about the show, and like I said, it's a great show. But if this is and this is, I think, where me and Hitch are going, and even DP a little bit, but if this is all we see from this era, and this is all we know, because there's 2 episodes left of the Bad Batch, if this is all I'm going to hear about clones, we keep saying there's Omega series, but so what does Omega have to do with Clone Force, 99? Like, what is
Clone
Force?
What I mean? 9. I like that. I like that for a title. Clone Force. They could have. That's good. It's like it's real 80s. It's real 80s, like comic book sci-fi. I like it.
I don't know. I just would expect a little bit. It's not a bad thing, but like I said, there's a 4-year difference between this and Rogue One. As Hitch said, I would like not. You don't have to tell me everything, but I would kind of want to understand like what happens in this 4 years, because this is 17 BBY and Rogue One's 21 BBY. So
Rogue One is 0 BBY. Rogue One happens like 3 days before the Battle of Yavin.
Before the Battle of Yavin, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like because it blends right into the beginning of episode 4 intentionally, right? So that's when it is. This is like 2 years after Order 66 at the most.
What would this
maybe
be?
3? So this is like 17 years BBY where we are.
Yeah, this is 17 BBY. So that's
17 years.
Episode 4.
So Omega would be like a 30-year-old around the time of the original trilogy, and something like a 65-year-old around the time of the sequel trilogy, and something like 40-ish around the time of the Mandoverse.
So I wonder where she would be falling into the original trilogy. Like, where would she be? Within the rebel.
That's the questions we all want to know. That's what I'm talking about. This is like there's just
maybe she's in a one of those rooms of requirement they put everywhere that you can skip through time.
Or is there such distrust with clones that they can't be trusted? They've been engineered by the Empire, ultimately. So we just don't want anything to do with them. And if you're a clone, you can't play. You can't play in our sandbox. Because from A New Hope on, the only time we hear about clones is Ben coercing Luke to like leave Tatooine and come on this big extravagant adventure and leave everything he knows and learn the ways of the Force and blah blah blah.
But it's a long time, especially in the clone's life cycle. If you figure that they're going to age faster and pass away, if there was a significant clone army that fought in World War II right now, they wouldn't be walking around. You wouldn't expect them to be around if they were only going to live like
they were all
30, 40 years.
They were all dead and whatever.
Yeah, well, they'd just be gone. So we'd be talking about the clones and we'd know things about them, but they wouldn't be here, especially not without some crazy stuff going on with LSA, right? So,
we don't even talk about cloning until the new trilogy, and you know how we all feel about the post-Quill. And, and where they started to talk about cloning and the Emperor was cloned, and he had to be because he's old as hell, and he's basically just being held up by wires. So
he's been dead for 35 years. He's been dead for a long time.
Cue it where it is. Who has it?
Sorry, I'm thinking we're gonna need to do this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
We got it.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
So So that's what I'm saying. Like that, I guess that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I get it. I want to have all the answers. I have this. There's this story. I want to know about this. I want to know about the vault. I want to know what all the dark secrets are that Palpatine has in store for the Alliance, for the Rebel, for whoever. But as we're saying, this is like real close to where Episode 4 starts, and there's none of that. Like,
well, Andor is going to take place in those 4 or 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, right?
Correct.
So Andor, she's like 25,
right?
26 during the Andor stuff. That's old enough to be involved with a galaxy-wide conspiracy against the legitimate government of the Empire.
So, but in Andor, there are no clones; they were all stormtroopers. So then, if that's 4 years post that, so that would be 13 years post this. Wouldn't you want to know what happens in these 13 years to like eradicate basically clones?
Yeah, did they just fade away? Did they fire them? Because there's not like because those clone super troopers, right? Like the boss, the mini bosses that run around with the stormtroopers. Eventually, they're just going to be gone,
right?
You know what I mean? Like they're peppered in now to stiffen the stormtroopers, but they don't. You know, you can only keep that going for another decade before it's been. You know, these guys are like 90 years old and decrepit, and they're not. You know, they're not going to be doing anything.
They really can't shoot. Right,
you're really terrible.
So maybe this jailbreak on Tantus fails, and all the clone prisoners die. Everybody dies.
So if something tragic happens, I'm all for it. You know, don't give me just a happy ending. You know, where everything's all sweet and nice, and things wrapped up. Because
think about this: Omega has the jailbreak already set up. She's gonna get those. She's going to get those poor kids out of there.
Hold up, Ken. Speaking of Omega, okay, is it me or is not anyone bothered that Omega is stating her plan and everything in the facility, and there's no cameras or microphones listening to her, but everybody's watching her all above?
That's a Star Wars conceit. I was thinking about the same thing. You're in a prison. You got line of sight. You can have a microphone that's probably pretty good. I mean, they would when they made the Peter Jackson movie Get Back, right? That documentary about the Beatles, they had Paul and John having a conversation about George leaving the band, and like John kind of being like, "Hey, Paul, you can't be such a jerk to him all the time." And they have it. Like they had a hidden microphone that they put in like a centerpiece on the table they were sitting in. They captured the whole conversation. So to your point, you would think the Empire would be able to do this to trick some children into spilling the beans.
Well, they don't think these kids are going to be coming up with like any sort of a plan to break out of the facility.
And if they run away, where are they going to go?
Wasted intelligence.
Nobody knows where they are. They're on a planet.
Where are they going to go?
They're monitoring them. That's the whole purpose of it, right?
You can't just jump into space. You're stuck.
All they're doing is making them play Tetris, and they take their blood twice a day. Other than that, they could care less.
Monitor them all above and everything. That's the extent of it. No
That's
microphones, no technology for listening in. She put the plan right on the table.
And remember, DP. Remember who's now in charge of the Imperial Medical? Who's chief medical Imperial chemist? Dr. Carr, and she's not going to do that to those kids.
Well, I thought she was like going to have a whole character. That's what I'm saying. There's not enough time. What happened to her redemption arc? She had a talk with Nalisay, and she said, "What are you going to do to like make this right?" So we just forgot about that.
She's going to steal the kids, just kidnap them.
You know what I mean? It's just it's going to be fast tracked, is what it is. There's just not enough time.
There's some banjo music in our future. I can feel it.
She's gonna get them out of there without the help of the Bad Batch. Bad Batch are gonna show up. There's gonna be a storm battle, and the whole thing's gonna blow up, and everyone's gonna die except for Omega and these 4 kids.
Possibly. I mean, maybe Omega and the kids make it off, but
they will. They're not gonna kill them. That would be very.
No.
They kill kids in this. Are you nuts? That was Darth Vader's whole deal. In the prequels, this is just nuking kids. That's like his favorite thing. Maybe that's who'll show up. Darth Vader will just show up and be like, "Well,
cut their heads off." In the last scene.
Okay, so let's just think about this. All right, so we're talking about all this stuff. So this shit goes awry. So we're getting ready to cut the credits. We don't find out what happens to Hemlock. He just blows up because he has to answer the Emperor, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's literally so much left, and there's 2 episodes. So are we gonna have a resolution? What happens to Hemlock? Because Tarkin's on his back allegedly. If this doesn't go right, the Palpatine's on his ass, and Palpatine I don't think will show up necessarily first. He might send Vader, right? Like,
I think we can see a scene with Tarkin after he gets word that Tantus base has been destroyed. Hemlock is dead. I think Tarkin now he starts his own plan, because I think there's some headbutting going on, because Tarkin has some idea about what he wants to do with this technology, but he doesn't know what it is. Hemlock won't tell him because he's not clear. His clearance isn't high enough. So Tarkin has this plan for the stormtroopers. We know that. We already know that he is driven in his own agenda. Hemlock is like a thorn to him. So I don't think it's gonna like shake him up too bad if this whole thing just blows up and goes away.
It would be nice to see, like you said, Vader show up or Palpatine come clean it out himself and just be like, well, this didn't work out. Just like zapping people.
Just wipe it clean.
Something, yeah. I mean, this is like a secret Imperial base at the end of the day, right? That nobody knew. So once the Bad Batch gets there, guess what, they have the coordinates now because they're attached to something. So this is something that they're going to have to decommission, right? Almost like blow up the whole planet, like because
once your safe house burned, it's burned. You can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If it's being washed, it's being washed.
They're going to let all these animals escape that are like mutant animals. You know what I mean? They've been genetically changed. So like, yeah.
And that's evidence that people can come and see. You don't want evidence of your crimes against kids. I mean, I would imagine in the imperial elections that the Tories would do poorly if they got caught, experimenting on children and stuff like that. And the emperor still gives a crap about his Senate. So.
All right.
That's not acceptable.
He's got a whole like Jurassic Park vibe, all the, bringing, playing around with nature, playing God.
It kind of was though.
Playing
it's just Palpatine dropping you off with nothing and just cackling. And just flying away.
Oh, and he flies away like a pterodactyl.
Yeah, he's good at that stuff.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't a bad episode at all. I was happy with it, but it's just, to me, I've seen it in his last couple of shows, and it just seems like it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's solid writing. I don't know.
It feels like they told him like Filoni, we're going to give you 500 episodes.
Exactly. He always does it.
And then, like right at the end, they were like, "We gave you 47 episodes of Bad Batch." He's like, "What? I already made all of them.
500, but
I've only got 3 left. What do you mean? You've got 3 left? Wrap it up."
So that's you heard.
We're giving J.J. Abrams another crack at this.
Oh. How did he write? So how do you write this stuff? Now I can't. I don't understand how to write a story.
There has to be a good or a bad ending.
If you're going to write a story, you're going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You already have it planned out. You break it up in. It's not like he wrote episodes 1 through 12 and then took a break and then came back and just did 13, 14, 15, like without even thinking about where he came from. I mean, he had to have this done.
It's a constant draft process. Like if you write something and later you get a better idea, you don't just go, "Oh well, I already had an idea." You go back and you refine and you improve. So it's not all.
Okay, so what I'm doing is playing devil's advocate. I don't think he just like wrote this out and then just tried to cram the ending in at
It does feel like he thought he had more space.
Yeah,
it's like if you're writing a banner.
Shows ago.
Like if you're a kid and you're writing a happy birthday banner and you do the bubble letters and the H is freaking humongous and the A is pretty big and then the P's are starting to run together and the Earth Day is like this big. It's all smashed up in the corner. That's that's what it feels like a little bit.
Yeah, I said this when we watched it. I think I've said this on each one of his shows. It's like a common theme that like his mind is so expansive, right? So he introduces like Black Chrysanthemum. He has all these introductions. He adds all these characters in, right? And then it gets to the point to where like I think he realizes like, shit, I only have this many episodes left. Well, there's a list of things that I've created, a list of storylines, different branches. I need to tie up as many as I can. Well, it looks like I'm not going to do that. It's almost like they have a massive storyboard that they're like doing this off of. and they're not like completing it, and or he just thinks he had another fourth season that they were like, yeah, the budget's not there, we're going to go in this direction. To me, it seems like he was told he had a fourth season, because the way this is written and the way all these shows that kind of fall off like this are, it seems like they're more on the bone, like he expected he had more time. Or maybe they said it was 18 episodes and we're only going to give you 15. But the way it's written, you know what I mean? If for somebody as intelligent as he is, the way these fall off, the way they do when he does them, there has to be like another discussion.
Right. You're probably right. They probably had a fourth season in effect, and they truncated it down. Okay, well, this is last season, dude. So wrap this up. And they just, I mean, it's not like it's uncommon where you only got they tell you to go for gold. Put all your ideas out there, because you never know when you may not have a chance to do them. So you put all your ideas out there. Later, time goes by and all that stuff. Hollywood decides, okay, well, we need to change the budget and everything. So now all of a sudden, you thought you had this many, years or this many episodes to do stuff. Now you only got so much, and unfortunately, things like that does happen in Hollywood. You're not going to get like a perfect scenario. Game of Thrones, that wasn't perfect. They only had so much stuff going on until bam, no more story left from the.
What are we gonna do? I don't know.
Here's the thing: the audience, the audience for Game of Thrones didn't care. I mean, they just liked watching it. It was a good show.
No, they cared.
I
was there.
for their favorite show end, and I was there
for the backlash of that. I was out here. I was doing podcasts when that happened. People did not like that.
Ken.
It start coming back into Last of the Dragon.
It was supposed to end. They didn't just I mean, the story was already done. All they were doing was making it live action.
I remember the night the long night happened. That's where the thing split. That's where it split. As soon as the long night was done, you got divided. Everybody was in love with Game of Thrones up until that episode, and then the parting of the Red Seas happened. All of a sudden, everybody's complaining about it's going too quickly. It's going. There you go.
I don't know because everyone came back for House of the Dragon.
My review's up on Nerd Cycle. If you want to know what I thought of the long night, check it out. Yeah. I believe my take was something along the lines of, "Hey, man, you could have done this in the right order to make this the actual climax of the story," which it sure seems to be like what they're trying to do. But anyway,
to your point, Ken, Game of Thrones still has its fans, regardless if they like the ending or not or whatever. And they did come back for House of the Dragon. A lot of people like those. I'm not a big fan of the show, but I'm not. But I still watch it. Mm-hmm. So to your point, it still has its fan base, and they're not crying for money and everything for that show. With this thing here, the Bad Batch, it's just a tricky thing. They're apparently not going to satisfy everyone, but if Filoni has a Omega show in mind to answer some more questions or continue the story and everything, then maybe you could give them sort of a pass.
Yeah, but keep in mind this was his get out of jail free season, right? Because to be honest, season 2 we were done with this show, right?
Yeah, it was not great.
So it
was still a good episode, though. I mean,
it wasn't terrible. We came back.
They had a really good season going on here. They still do to a degree. 3 episodes. We don't know what's going to happen.
But again, it's just trying to cram all that in that top.
It is.
That top part. Like it's all smashed up there, and then like I said, the H is real big here, the A is real big here, Appy, and then the Earth Day. The birthday is like just this. It's just so tiny. It's so tiny because if you don't know how to plot it out and plan it out right, you really get tripped up. And I think that's one of the differences between the Filoni, manufacturer center for Star Wars cartoons and something like what they're doing on Andor, because with Andor, they knew exactly how many episodes they were going to have. Season 1 was exactly X amount of episodes long. Season 2 it's already in defined arcs that take place at discrete time periods along the timeline. It's all storyboarded and tight.
They knew what was going to happen. They knew where Andor was going to end. Yeah. They knew it's very clear where that story has to land.
And
that's different.
Speaking of Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin, he is a gardener. People famously call him a gardener as a writer, and he bring up a lot of different possibilities. Like, okay, this prophecy can mean 8 things, and I'll just bring up 8 things, and 7 of them are bullshit, and 1 of them's real, and you just got to figure out which one. And maybe he hasn't decided yet until he's further down the line, and then he just picks which is more interesting or better or whatever. And that feels a little bit more like what Filoni's doing, but he's not clipping anything. It's like sometimes we get an answer, but sometimes it's just dangling, and so it doesn't feel like you're moving forward right through those maybes, I guess. And that's something that George R. R. Martin is really good at, is bringing up like 5 or 6 things that are important and like 500 things that are not important.
Getting you interested, giving you a little bit of everything, but then, oh no, here's the real. Here's really
that character's dead. Sorry, new characters.
And that's a good way to do that. If you're going to bring up 5 different storylines, but only one of them is real, you have to kill the other 4 people. And that's basically what Game of Thrones did. They gave you the characters. They gave you all these different stories that things could go, but then, oh, no, we're going to kill everybody, and it's going to go a completely different way. And everyone was like, wow, that was great. Didn't see that coming.
I never saw some of that stuff coming. A wheelchair king. Wheelchair king. In Westeros, a place that is defined by masculinity and male, military prowess, and everybody's just cool with a wheelchair guy being the king. I'm cool with a wheelchair guy being the king, by the way. That's not I think it's cool. But the idea that those guys are all just like, it's totally fine. When you have like every other scene is some guy being like, I have this armor from my grandfather and I'll kill you. And then they get cut in half.
It doesn't jive with the vibe of the series and everything.
And then, okay, that the line about having the best story, like, first of all, that's debatable. It was very debatable that Bran had the best story. First of all, Jon Snow's story was pretty great. It involved relations with the Dragon Queen. That's pretty interesting stuff. Not saying Bran's story was totally boring or something like that, but the idea that it's the most interesting story, or that you want the person with the most interesting story to be in charge of everybody, I don't know. You can have an interesting story and be a terrible boss.
The person can talk really good. Does that really make him a good leader?
I don't know. Ken thinks Tarkin is, so.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And Tarkin was around for, well, we only saw him for what? A month? I mean, as far as we know, Tarkin was only around for basically a month. But now we know he had a history with the Empire. He's still, to me, he's a hero for the humans, because he's the only one that could ever tell Vader to shut up and stand down and not get a force choke. Several times, actually.
And then he committed a genocide. Verifiable, completely unprovoked. I mean, this is just a pure demonstration.
He's supposed to do that. They're supposed to blow up planets, and that's why they built that thing. And if you're not going to blow up planets, if you're not going to build the freeway and destroy the town, what's the point? Bypasses have to be built. If there is a planet in the way, you got to get rid of it.
You got to get rid of it. Okay, how does everyone want this thing to end? Like, does anybody have in mind, like, is there a hope? Is there a thing that you have envisioned? Or are we like, do we want a happy ending?
I want to see the kid. I want to see the little baby reunited with its mother. That's what I want to see, and I want to see Omega take the what's his not Balin. What's his name? Byron. I want to see Byron reunited with his mother. Didn't
we get that at the end of the last Mandalorian season? Did he already do that storyline?
No.
This should be the failure. Look, this is, as far as we know, this era is just Empire W's, right? The Empire has like a 1,000 winning percentage right now.
Yes.
But at the same time, we know that we're about to be told that's not true. And that's something that is interesting, right? Because Palpatine does somehow return. but he doesn't somehow return for another 55 years. You know what I'm saying? So if he doesn't somehow return,
somehow Palpatine returned.
For
so
50
if he
years,
returned, that means he has to leave. So when does he leave?
Well,
we know when that happens. Yeah,
right. So maybe maybe he left before we know that he left. Could you leave?
So you
twice?
think that was a clone?
Oh my god!
Sure.
Body double. Like Saddam Hussein had 9,000 body
doubles. It was a doppelganger.
Every guy with a mustache in Iraq was in trouble for a while there.
This is crazy. So you're rewriting episode 6 now? Okay.
He's not dead. He's just a little. He's just a little flat at the bottom of the.
I don't know that. Vader throwing him over that into that shaft and him turning into.
Well, if that doesn't kill him, the space station exploding from the inside out when Wedge Antilles and Lando Calrissian explode the reactor at the center.
That would pretty much seal his fate, wouldn't it? Wouldn't
you would think?
Well, it's almost like that. Where did his lightsaber fall? Because somebody collected Luke Skywalker's from Cloud City. So where did his fall? There's no lightsaber that fell. Remember that?
Luke lost his off the bottom of the Cloud City.
So wouldn't we find Palpatine's somewhere in space? Like we have these guys.
Oh, Palpatine doesn't need a lightsaber. He has a Vader.
Right.
He wields that guy like a weapon.
He still had his.
Sidious had the lightsaber.
So you're saying that, but you're saying that Sidious didn't have it on him.
Why didn't he draw? He would have drawn down on Vader.
I don't know. Oh, that's like an unanswered question. Maybe with it.
That's a good what if. That's a good what if.
Yeah, it would be.
Palpatine had a lightsaber, and I don't know.
I mean, maybe
whoops Vader's ass. Just like
maybe that's a question that because everybody. I think we should do maybe we should do on an episode as we're winding down, like questions for George. I would like to do
questions for George. That's a great title.
I would like to, because I think I would be if I had a chance to speak to George Lucas. That would be one of the questions I had when you were going in the 4, 5, and 6. So when 6 happened, did you envision Palpatine having lightsabers? Because we didn't see him having lightsabers until the prequels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was combat, this guy was sick in combat. So was George's vision for him just to have Force lightning and be kind of like this? I don't know. I guess it's like the this magician kind of this druid that just uses ranged attacks rather than more the combat. You know what I mean? I just that's something I would want to know.
I do suddenly like the idea of people trying to depose Palpatine, just running into his office and being like, "You're under arrest," and there's 10 of them, and he just turns just lowers all the shades.
Right?
It's like. You know what I mean? That's the thing about him is he's incredibly dangerous, and he doesn't even need. I mean, who's he need a lightsaber for? Like Yoda. No. That's it.
At that evolution in his life, in Return of the Jedi, I think George wrote that story to end. I mean, the end of Jedi was the end. That was it. That was it. We had the redemption of the father. We had Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin together again, imbued in the Force. We had Luke was redeemed and happy. Everything was done. The Empire was destroyed. It was it. There was joy across the galaxy that the Empire had fallen and the Emperor was dead. That was it. So if you ask George that question, I think he would say, it ended to where it was supposed to end, and no, Palpatine did not need a lightsaber because he had Force lightning. He had the complete Force. The entire. It was at his disposal. He could do whatever he wanted with it. He didn't need a.
Yeah, but on the flip side, though, I think. Yeah, on the flip side, that brings in the point of where you're saying he knew his body was failing him, right? He was old, wrinkled, maybe he knew that he didn't have enough power left, so that's why that's what drives on this cloning facility. That's what ties this together, even into the Bad Batch, right? He realizes as a humanoid, his body is only going to last so much. And the dark side.
That was probably George's fault to bring up the clones, because the clones weren't even. I mean, they were. Yeah. Well, no one was talking about it, but then Phantom Menace came around and Jar Jar Binks, and now everyone wants to talk about clones.
Yeah.
Cloning Jar Jar Binks. What about that?
No, never.
No, That would be something. But no, that's a good story idea that we can pose. Maybe even put on the on our Facebook group. I mean, it's like if there were questions you could ask George, what would they be? Because that's just I always think about some of the stories we are, and obviously Filoni being somebody trusted close to George and studied under George. I mean, we've all agreed that this is our closest path moving forward. Or Star Wars, just listening to what Filoni does and following his stories. So I think it'd just be interesting every time we get to shows like this and we ask these questions, how we want the ending to be. Like, it's weird. It's a weird.
Maybe it should be called Ask Filoni, not George, because
Yeah,
I don't think any of us have a problem with what George did.
George is not a part of this. He is simply Disney's largest singular shareholder now.
Right. He's getting a dividend check every month. He doesn't care. It might be cares, but he has no part in anything that we're talking about right now. So maybe a better show would be Ask Filoni, like get Filoni out here.
Do both. Ask George and ask Filoni.
That's correct. Yeah, let's ask them both, right? Let's ask them both.
He has 37 million Disney shares.
Right.
37 million Disney shares.
I forget. I don't know what mine are at. I want to say they're at $96 a share now. But I bought them at,
it's 113.
Yeah, I bought them at.
I mean,
I bought them at 68. Yeah, I bought them at 68 during COVID, but that's another story for another day.
So that's pretty good. I mean, I'd be pretty satisfied with a.
Hey, I had a chance to buy a lot of Netflix stock when they were just doing DVDs. I'm still kicking myself.
Slow and steady wins the race, DP. You gotta be. Gotta be diversified.
We're waiting for you guys to buy stock in Carbonite Bounty BS, right? That's next, right? We're going public. So
SEC, we're not being serious. Do not.
We're not.
Do not come ask us questions. We don't have good answers. We have no good answers for you.
Well, we could do it. We could sell.
Yeah, we're going public by just asking for a like.
The SEC people are going to be sitting across from me and DP.
We take
we'll start there. Start with a like, we'll
give us a like, and then that's where we're gonna start. That's our public offering. Just give us a like or a comment or whatever medium you're watching us on. Just give us some feedback.
We'll say your name on air.
We will.
We do it.
We do.
Get it done.
Yeah,
that's
guys.
Right.
It is. It definitely is. But we're winding things down. We have 2 weeks left. Basically 48 minutes of show left. So hopefully this last 48, this not like the first 48 show.
It'll pay off. It'll pay off.
No pun intended. But yeah.
It'll be just fine.
For sure. But yeah, guys, until next week, this is a way.
This is the way.